Welcome back. In this video, we will cover a very important concept, and that is the concept of roots and how you can navigate between different pages or different screens in your application. We will also have a quick look at themes. Now, in order to build our application, the main idea is that we will build our application in such a way that our main.dart file basically only has the main method or the main function and then the class that we run from there that contains your material app. Now, when you hover over the material app, you will see that there is initial root, there's on generate root, there's roots, there's unknown root, there's on generate initial roots, and so forth. So there's roots that we can set in the material app. So we will get to them later on. For now, I want to structure our application a bit, or our folders a bit. So I'm going to go into the lib folder. So on the lib folder, I want to right click and I'm going to create a new folder. That folder I'm going to call pages, which means that we will have our pages separate, or our screens separate from the other files and also the main.dart. So the main.dart I'll leave in the lib folder. Now on the lib folder again, I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call this one roots. Now even though roots will only be one file, it's nice to also separate it. Okay, so the roots here, we will create a roots file now. So let's just create a few pages that we will link to later on. So I'm going to create a new file there, and let's call this one page, or let's call it main page. So this will be our main.dart file, basically, our main page.dart file, where our main page will subside. So we're going to have the import statement at the top, just the material package there. So material.dart. And then I'm going to start off with a stateful widget. And this widget will just say main page. Okay, so this will be my main page and we will change it later on. And if I want to get to my main page, you'll see now what we need to do in order to get to our main page from the main.dart. So this is just a stateful widget like we would have had inside of the main. So what I can do now is to go to home and I can use main page here. And by just doing this and saving now, maybe let's just go to the main page and let's change this to a scaffold. And I think that's all I'm going to do for now. And let's rerun this quickly. Right, and there we can see our blank screen. So maybe on this main page now, we can just have a scaffold. And inside of the scaffold, we can maybe have, let's have an app bar there. And the app bar will maybe have just a title for us. So we will have a text widget there, and let's set the title as main page. And if we save, we will see this is our main page. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do for the main page. So I'm going to copy this whole main page, and let's go and create a few more pages. So let's say on the pages now, I'm going to right click again and say new file, and let's call this one second page. I mean, you could have a login screen or whatever. So it's going to be second page.dart. I'm going to paste the same again, but instead of main page there, we will call this one second page. Let's change that to second. Let's change that main to second as well. Let's change this to second page and this also to second page. Now, if we save this, then let's change this also to second page. So if we go to main.dart and instead of using main page there, I can now use second page, and then the second page should actually be opening up. Right, and let's create a last page there that we will use. So it's just simple pages. Let's call this one the third page, and we will just add the extension .dart. And I think for this one, it will be probably better if I can just copy the return statement there. Okay, so for the rest, it's easier to just type it. So let's go with the import statement, material.dart. Okay, so we use material.dart. And we're going to create another stateful widget, and let's call this one third page. Right, and then in the return statement, I'm going to paste, and this one will just say third page. Right, so if we go back to our main.dart, I'm going to actually remove the rest here because we're not really going to use the pages here. But if I wanted to have the main page here, I can start off with the main page by using this home. Now, if the main page is not in here, you can just use Control Dot and we can import that main page. So just back at the main page. So now we're going to work with roots. So I've got my pages and I want to set up some routes on how to link to these pages. So at the end, I will explain this whole concept again. So just bear with me as we go through everything to set up all the routes. So in this routes folder, you're going to create a new file, and you can really call this anything you want. And the reason why I place the routes in their own file is so that we can separate the logic of the routes out of the main.dot. So we have that separately so that we know that if anything we need to change with the routes, we're going to do it right inside of this file. And it's not a part of the main.dot, which could also include other things. Right, now for the routes, I'm also going to import at the top the material .dart file there so that we have access to all the material components. Now I'm going to create this class and just going to call this class the route manager. Now you can call it whatever you like. This is just a name that I made up now. It's a route manager. Now the first thing that we need to do is for every single page that we want to link to, we need to give it a specific value inside of this file. So I'm going to use static members of this class so that we can refer to it by saying route manager dot and then just the variable name. So I'm going to use constants. We're not going to change them. And the first one will be the home page. So which one of these pages needs to link to the home page? And the home page is normally indicated in routes as just a /, which means that is the root of your application. So the home page is the root. Now let's go and set up a constant also for, let's say, the second page. So again, these names, you can change whatever you want them to. So let's say the second page will then be from the root. We will have a second page called second page. So these values that I'm giving now is all thought up. You can make them whatever you want. So now for the last also, we're going to have static, const, string again, and this will now be my third page. So if you've got more pages, you will just carry on the same type of convention. So I'm going to call this one the third page. So only your root page, your home page, should be the /. All the others will be / with whatever you want to call it. Okay, so if you want to add some new pages to the route manager, you will just come and add them exactly the same way. Now, if we go back to the main.dot and we go into the material app, you will see there's an on generate route. So this is essentially the one that we want to specify a value for. And if you look at on generate route, you can see that this on generate route sends back or needs a function that accepts a route settings. So this is essentially the next function that we will create in our routes.dart file. It will be a function that will be accepting route settings. And I'll get back to this concept later on. So for now, that is why we need to have a function that takes in the route settings and only route settings, nothing else. Cannot take in anything else. Otherwise, we cannot use it here. So that is why we will be creating something like that here. So I'll get back to explain the whole concept again. So we will have a static function here that will return back a route that is dynamic. And I'll show you later on what I mean by this. And then we're going to call this whatever you want. So I'm going to call this generate a route. Now we've seen that this should actually have route settings. And let's call this settings. Now let's open. And you'll see that because we need to return back a route that's dynamic, it's going to give me a problem because the body might complete normally, causing null to be returned, and they don't like null getting returned. So we should actually have a return statement here. So don't worry, this error will go away as soon as we start returning something. Right, so later on, in the main.dart, or inside of any one of these of my pages, let's say the main page, I want to actually link back to third page or to second page. I will need to pass in a name for the route. So what we're going to do here is to have a switch that will look at that name or that route being passed through. So this settings will later on contain that name. So we will refer to settings.name. Now, if you hover over it, it basically tells you it will be the name of the route. For example, /settings, which means that this name could now be either one of these three. It will either be home page or second page or third page. Right, so if I go into my switch now, those are the cases I want to test for. For example, case homepage, we can first test that one. Or you could have said case, which is the root. But I'm just using the variable there, which is a bit easier to understand. So let's say it is the home page that is passed through as the route where we want to go. Then I need to say where to go. So I will be returning a material page route. The material page route uses a builder to push it to the next page. So what we will do here is to use the builder, keep your cursor there, and then use this context with the brackets. And what we want to do inside of this, actually, let's just use the fat arrow there. So I'm going to go and select builder again. I think it's easier just using the fat arrow because we want to go now to a specific page. So if settings.name is in fact the home page, then where do I want to go? What should be my main page? And that will be my main page. So we call that one main page. And you can see you can type it like that and then use the control dot to import that main page. So where is this main page? It's inside of this file, and it's going to return back main page, which is the main page that we want to have our app open up. It's this one. Okay, so for the first case there, we said if the case is home page, we want to return material page root, and it is in fact the main page that we're returning. And if I save now, it formats nicely, and that's all we need to do. And because it's returning, we don't need to break out of the case. So after this, we can then go with case second page. Now the second page will be exactly the same. We will do exactly the same thing again. We will return back some class, which is a widget, which is a page. So instead of main page now, we're going to call second page. And again, we can auto import it from the package. And in this case, it comes from this file called second page. So if you look at the top, it's from my root. There's pages directory, and it comes from second page dot. Okay, so that's the second page. And you can already see the direction we're going here. For every single page that you want to go to, you'll need a case. So if we want to go to the third page now, we will also do exactly the same thing. We will have that return, but instead of going to main page, we will go to third page. Now again, auto import is easier than just going back again with the control dot. Okay, so now we've got for the home page, for the second page, and for the third page. Now, it will still give us a problem at the top because what if it's not one of those three? So we need to handle the default case as well. So I'm going to use a default here. And for the default, I'm just going to force an exception to occur. So remember, this exception will actually only run for you as a developer because your application won't run if you have something typed out wrongly somewhere here. And that is the only time that you'll get this format exception. So this format exception, let's use format exception there and just have our own message in between. It can be anything. We can say root not found, check roots again. So that's just a message for yourself then to make sure that you've actually got a root set up in here for your application. Okay, and that's basically it for the root manager class. So what we need to do is at the top create a static const string with some variable name that is descriptive of the page that you're going to. So if you've got a login page, you will name this one, let's say login page with login page. Okay, and these are all your own variables that you create. So you can name them anything, but just make them descriptive. Your home page should always be just the /, and then all of your other pages will be the / with some data that you specify to descriptively name them. Then we need to have this generate root. Well, you can call it anything you want. It must be static, and it return back a root that's dynamic. It accepts in root settings, and that settings, you'll see later on where we get the settings, we actually send it through, and that settings.name will send through either home page, second page, or third page. And we test. If it's home page, we go to main page. If it's second page, we go to second page. If it's third page, we go to third page. And this material page root, by doing it this way, you'll see also that there's a nice animation that happens because we are calling material page root. And you can see material page root constructs a material page root whose contents are defined by builder. And the values of builder must not be null. So this builder then builds the main page or the second page or the third page, and you will start seeing them. Right, and now everything is set up for our roots inside of this file. It's root manager, so anytime you create a new file under pages, you can just come and add it here and add the case at the bottom. And that's all you need to do. Now, if we go back to main, you will see that my material app has got a home, but we're not going to use the home at all. So what we want to use here is the initial root. So the initial root, we will basically go to the root manager. There's our root manager class. And which one should be our initial root? Well, it's the one that we said should be just a /, and that is our home page. So we will start off with the home page, and then after that, we will use this on generate root. So every root that gets generated then will basically go to this root manager of ours. So it's root manager dot, and there's the generate root. And you can see we actually do not need to pass in anything. We just call our generate root, because this on generate root needs to accept a function that accepts root settings. And our function called generate root actually accepts exactly that. It accepts root settings. And that's why we can just pass the function there. So whenever we want to go to a new root, and I'll show you now how do we go to a new root, it will call this function of ours, generate roots, and it's going to pass in the data. And then depending on the data on where we want to go, we will go to the specific page. Now let's go back. So in our material app, these are the only two lines that we need together with our roots file. Now let's remove this import at the top. Let's save everything. And I'm going to stop it from running. And I'm going to rerun everything because we made a lot of changes. Right, and as soon as your app starts, you will see that we are at the main page. So instead of using the home property of material app, we /, initial root, and we refer back to the root manager.homepage. And the one that you will be referring to is the one that you indicated should be the /. That is always my initial root. So make sure that your initial root will refer to the one that is the /. In our case, it is the home page. Okay, the rest will depend on this generate root and the value that we pass for it. And you can see this main.dart is now very clean. It's only got a few components. And at the end of this video, we'll quickly have a look at themes also. That's also part of your material app. And there's actually a lot of things that you can set here. And you would rather just have those properties here and handle everything else on its own. For example, now these roots are handled in the roots.dart file in the root manager class. Okay, so now let's go and see how we can move between pages. So you'll see my initial root is the home page, and this is the main page we see here. So if I go to main page, we can now start changing some information here. So let's go to the body, and we start off with a center widget, like we normally do, and set the child maybe as a column, and have some children inside of here. And let's start off with an elevated button. And the reason for this is we'll probably need a button to click in order to go to a new page. So for this button, we'll need the on pressed. I'm just going to save that one. We'll get back to this one now. And then also we will have a child. And for now, I'm just going to use a normal text widget there. And we can say something like go to second page. Now I'm going to use this exact same button again. And we will have a second button, and maybe just a sized box in between. And let's set the height, let's say at 20. And in this one, we will say, let's go to the third page. So if I save now, I've got two buttons, and maybe we can have the main axis alignment as main axis alignment.center. Okay, so there we've got the two buttons. Maybe the height is a bit too much. Okay, so if I click on go to second page, we want to go to the second page. If I click on go to third page, I want to go to the third page. Okay, so let's see how we do that. So inside of our on pressed, very easy now to do. We will just use the navigator, and you will remember that we used navigator before. So we use the navigator class to either pop something from the stack on what's currently showing on the screen, or we can move to new routes. So I'm going to say navigator.of, use the context, and then I'm going to use a function called push named. Now, why push named? Because we named our routes. Now, if you look at your routes, the routes are named / second page and / third page. And those are the values that we're testing here. Although I'm just testing the variable, but what is in the variable is what we're actually testing. Now, if I go back, I need to have a route name now. Now, all my route names is these values. It's home page, second page, and third page. So if I want to move now from here to the second page, I will just go to my route manager class and I will refer to the second page. And that's all I need to do. So if you look again at the routes, route manager dot second page means it's route manager class, and because it's static, I can use route manager dot. And there's the home page and the second page and the third page. So by just saying route manager dot second page, I will now be moving to the second page. So if I save now and I click on second page, you will see we are at the second page. Now you will see that there's an automatic back button that is there, and if I click back, it goes back to the main page. So click on second page, automatically adds the arrow there, and I'll show you now how to remove the arrow if you don't want it there. And you can see there we are at the second page. Okay, so we can do exactly the same thing if we want to move to the third page now. So I can go in here and just use navigator.of context, push named, and then I will just indicate, let's go to the third page. And by doing that, I'm at the third page. So there I'm moving between pages. Now let's quickly have a look at this. As soon as I call push named, it will go to this on generate route, and it will run this generate route. And the route that I specify now inside of here in push named, this part there, route manager.second page, will now become settings.name. So there's other stuff that you can also send through settings, but that specific route that we're sending through will be stored under settings.name. And that is what we're testing here. And by going into this, we are defining a new route and pushing the pages to either main page or second page or third page. Right, so now we can move to the second page, for example. So let's go to the second page quickly and add a button here to maybe, instead of using the arrow there, maybe use a button to go back. So in order to do that, let's go to our second page. And in our second page, we only have the scaffold now with the text. So let's have the body here for this scaffold as well. And we will also have a center widget, which will have a child. And we'll have a column again. Let's add some children there. Or in fact, let's leave the column because we will have only one button there. So maybe let's just have the button there instead of the whole column. So we will just have the elevated button there. And that elevated button will have an on pressed, and it will also have a child. And that child will just be a normal text widget. And let's set the text widget as go back to main page. And if we save it, we will see go back to main page. Okay, so now for me to get back to the main page and maybe not use that arrow. So if you do not want that arrow, you're going to go to your app bar, and that automatically imply leading, you're going to set to false. And that will remove your arrow for you. And now we can use this button to maybe go back. Okay, so if I click then on that, in order to go back, I just need to pop off this second page from the stack. So I will just need to go and say navigator.pop and popping the context. Now, if I save now, you will see I click on it, I'm back at the main page. Go to second page, go back to main page. So what happens here is the main page is on the bottom of the stack now. If I click on second page is now above the main page. So if I pop it, I'm still back at the main page. I didn't relaunch main page. I just popped off the second page. So if I wanted to relaunch the main page, then I would have used the same route to say navigator.of context and say push named. I can also say pop and push named. And what that will do then, it will pop off the main page and then go to the second page. So if I go now to the second page and I click back to go to the main page, then we get a black screen because then the main page is not there anymore. So just be cautious about this also. You can use pop and push named, which means it will, if I call pop and push named inside of the main page, it means the main page will then be closed and then it will open the second page, which means second page is now at the bottom of the stack. So if I pop second page then we will get this black screen. Okay, so I'm going to change this back to push named and just save again, and we'll need to rerun. Okay, so if we go to second page is there. If I click go to main page, it pops off second page and we're back at main page. Okay, so now let's say we want to do something else with the third page. I can still go to third page, and there you can see the arrow is still there. But let's say from the main page, we want to send some data through to the third page and display it here. So how would we be able to do that? Well, firstly, we will need to go to our third page and make sure our third page actually has a constructor that can accept some data. So in the third page, let's say we will have a final string just passing in a simple string, but it could be anything that you're passing through. And let's set it to a name. Now we will need a constructor, so I'm going to say third page and create a constructor for it. And I will just say in the brackets this dot name. So I just want to have one thing passed in, and remember that this must be required. Okay, and then I'm going to save. Okay, so we've got our constructor, third page, which accepts a name, and that name we can now maybe go and display on this third page. So if we go to third page, it's currently a blank screen. So let's say for this one, we will have a body again. We will have a center widget. In the center widget for the child, we will have an elevated button again. And let's set the on pressed for this one. And let's get a child, which will be, again, just a normal text widget. Now for this text widget, we will say hi. And let's say we're passing through the name now. So I'm going to say, hi name, go back to main page. And now you can see we've got a problem with name. And why is that? Because this class actually opens there and closes there, whereas name is in this class called third page. So because this is the state class of a third page, we can refer to this value at the top by just going and saying widget.name. And whenever you use a dot, remember your curly braces there for your string interpolation. Okay, and now we can save that. We've got some errors. We'll fix that now. Okay, so this third page will accept a name. We have the constructor that accepts the name, so it's required. This dot name, it's a final name, so when the name gets passed in, it can't be changed anymore. We've got the app bar, and we will have the text hi widget.name. So widget.name refers to the state class's widget, which is third page.name. Okay, and then go back to main page. Right, so let's see if we can pass through this name now. Now, if you go to roots, you'll see a problem there because inside of this root, third page, we are required now to have that name variable pass through, which means that we should find a way to actually get that name variable sent through using this generate root coming through the settings. So that's totally allowed. And the way to do that, if we quickly go back to our main page, because it's from the main page that we want to send some data to the third page, so we can still say navigator.ofcontext.pushNamed to the third page. You will see that pushNamed, if you hover over it, has got the root name, and then it's got something extra there. It's got arguments. Now, if you read about the arguments a bit, you'll see the provided arguments are passed to the pushed root via root settings.arguments, which means on this side, we can go and say settings. Not name, but settings.arguments, and we will be able to get the arguments. So let's go back to the main page again. So if push named, if we're going to use that arguments, look at that again. Any object can be passed as arguments. Example, a string of lists a list of strings, a list of ints, or an instance of a custom myRootArguments class. Often a map is used to pass key value pairs. And maybe that will make sense for us to send through some data to classes using a map. So How can we send a map through? Well, we need to use this named argument, which is arguments, and I'm going to create a map there. So that map, let me just show you that again. The arguments there can be any object, and that includes a map, a list, just a normal string value, whatever you want. So that arguments there must be a non-nullable object. So in our case, we're going to use a map. And now it's easy. I can just go and say, we want to send through a name, and the name should be whatever I want. So I can get this name now from a text field or wherever it comes from. But I'm just going to send through, let's say, John Rambo. Okay, so that's the value I want to send through. So I'm using push named. It's going to go to third page. And the arguments that I'm going to pass through has got a key of name and a value of John Rambo. Now let's go back to roots, because this is where the error is. We need to supply that name here. And now, remember what we said, these values that we're passing through from the main page, these arguments can be received back inside of the settings by referring to settings.arguments. And maybe now at this stage, it could be a good principle for you to maybe send through data to your individual classes using a map. And then we can do something at the top. So we can, for example, say, well, let's get a variable called value passed. So there will be a value that was passed in. And I'm just going to do a simple test to make sure that there is, in fact, a value that was passed in when this function runs. So I'm going to say settings.arguments. And you can see there's arguments. So we're going to refer to settings.arguments. If that is not equal to null, then we know something has been sent through, and we can set our value passed to settings.arguments. And now we know our arguments that we are passing through from the main page is in fact a map. And the map will hold string or key value pairs, but the key is a string and my value is a string. But maybe we don't want to always have string and string. Maybe we want to have string and list later, or string and map, or string and integer, which means that we can probably declare this as a string for the key and then a dynamic value for the value. Okay, so let's go back to roots. So this settings.arguments, we need to specify its type. So I'm going to say this will come back as a map with the key a string and the value a dynamic, which means it can contain anything. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're declaring the variable called value passed at the top. We're first checking that there is arguments that was sent through, because if it's not equal to null, then we can set the value to value passed. And then we know there's some values passed through. So we will go to settings.arguments, and we know the arguments that we will pass through always for all of the classes will just be a map with a key and a value pair. The keys will be strings, and the values can be different. It can be an int, or it can be a double, or it can be a list, or it can be a map, or whatever you want. So now, if I want to pass through now, because value passed now has that argument, it's got that map now. So if I want to go to third page now, and I want to send through that required name parameter, I can just go to value passed. Value passed is the map, so I just need to indicate the key, and that will return back the value. And the key is called name. So let's just have a look at that again. In the main page, we pass through a map. The key in the map is called name, and the value is John Rambo. So I just need to reference the name. I will get John Rambo. So if I go back to roots again, I will just be passing in that value passed is now the map, then the value John Rambo, and we can just refer to it by saying value passed, referring to the specific name. Okay, so I'm going to rerun this again. We changed a lot. Maybe, I think that will be fine. Okay, so let's see if this works now. So if I click on go to second page, it still works. If I click on go to third page, it says, hi, John Rambo, go back to main page. If I click go back to main page, we haven't done that yet, but I can click back there. Okay, so what we did now is to send through data from the main page to the third page by just clicking the button. So from the main page, we just said push named, go to third page, but send through some arguments. And the arguments will be a map with a key and a value pair. And then in our roots, we know that if there's a value that's been passed through and it's called name, it must go into third page. And now we can have in that map from different other pages, maybe a second page won't have a name argument, but it will have something else, and we can refer to it also by using this value passed. Now again, as part of the third page, we can again go to the app bar and maybe say automatically imply leading to false again so that we can't go back with the back button. Okay, so let's say we want to pop this one now off the stack again, but let's say we want to send back some data to the main page again. So in order to do this, we want to go back to the main page, and where we say navigator.of context, push named, all this that we've done, we can add something else here. So we can make this onPressed function. We can make this an asynchronous because we will be waiting for a value that will come back. So what we will do here is to have, let's say, a var result back equals, and we will call the await on this navigator, which means that from the main page, when we click the button, it will go to the third page, sending through these arguments, and it places the arguments there. But then we are waiting for a result to come back. When that result is back, we can now do something on the main page again. So maybe at the end, after this or inside of this column, and just find the end of the column, we're going to add a text widget there, and let's set a result variable there at the top. So let's say string result at the top, and maybe we say data to come back. And at the bottom, we will just refer to that result and save it again. Okay, so as soon as we get this result back, after the await is done, and we get back to this, we will then say, let's call set state, and we will set our result to this result back. Okay, so maybe we can refer to this result as a dynamic result so that it can contain anything. So dynamic result is data to come back, and then we will have on this side, we will just say this result will then be set to the result back. It's because we can send any type of value back from the navigator or sending it back into this variable. This variable can contain any type of object, even though we know it's going to contain a string. And that is why this result back didn't like that. So we will rather make it dynamic, even though we know it's a string that will come through. Okay, so then we set the result back. But now we need to set something in the third page also, because this button takes us to the third page. And from the third page, we want to send back the result, so we can set it here. So let's go to the third page again. In the third page, there's the onPress. So in this onPress, when we get to this button, hi John Rambo, go back, now we want to send back some data. Now in order to send back the data, this is again very easy. We're just going to say navigator.pop using the context, and that will pop it off the stack. So if we save now, and we click there, data to come back, still there. Okay, let's go to third page. John Rambo's there, go back, and it's null. Okay, because we did not send through anything. So as part of this pop, you will see there's a result on the right-hand side. So you can also send through any type, and that's why you can see also it's a generic there. It can contain any type of result. So in order to send through the result as the second argument, we can just pass through anything. So let's say hello world. So the second argument is anything you want to send through. So if I'm popping this off now, it goes back and it sends back hello world. So let's save this quickly and see how it works. Click back, hello world. Okay, so let's rerun this and make sure it works as expected. So there we start, go to second page, still working, go to main page, pops it off. Go to third page. Remember, from the main page, we sent through John Rambo. So if I click on third page, it says, hi, John Rambo there. How did it get there? From the main page, we send it through to the third page. And by referring to widget.name, we've got, hi, John Rambo, go back to the main page. Now, when we click on this button, we pop it off the stack, but we also send through hello world. So to the main page now, that result back will contain hello world. When we call set state, we set the result there on the text widget as the result that came back. And that is why we see hello world there. Okay, so this is a mouthful of working with different routes and how to send data between routes. Now, for the last thing for this video, we will have a look at the main.dart again. So in the main.dart for your whole route, it's only those two that you need to work in the way that we've set it up. And you can see it's nicely structured. You've got your pages there, you've got your routes. And if you want to add a new page, you will just add your Dart file there, go to routes, and also go and add them at the top, and also just add your switch or your case statement. And that's all you need to do. Now, something else that we can also change in the Material app that you should actually change is the theme. So if you go to the theme, you will see that you can use theme data here. So if you hover over theme, you can see it accepts theme data. So we can pass in theme data there. And then here we can create some global theme changes to our app. For example, I can change the primary color here to colors.purple. And if I save it now, you can see that in every single page where I go, the primary page is, or the primary color, which is that top part there, has now been changed to purple. So it's one way to make global changes to your app. So this theme data can be changed then. So the primary color, for example, also there's an accent color. So you can set the accent color as colors dot, let's say deep orange, although we won't see the accent color now. So you can make, for example, the accent color something else. You can even change the scaffold background color. So the scaffold background color could be colors dot, let's say red, but you want to go with a light red. And if I save now, you can see every single page will have that same red background color because it's the scaffold background. Now, obviously, you can go into specific pages and change the scaffold color, which will override this one. But it's up to you. So theme data, if you hover over it, there's a lot of theme values that you can set that will globally affect your app on every single page. For example, another nice one that you can do is changing the font family. For example, I can use, let's say, Times New Roman. Now, look at the font now on the main page. If I save, you can see all of the fonts now changed to Times New Roman, and it's throughout my whole app. So it's one place where you can change the font family for your whole application. And then we can also maybe go to Railway, which is another font that's built in. And you can see how it changes. Okay, so you can play around with the fonts. Obviously, you can add your own fonts also and have your font family there. Okay, so if you hover over theme data, you can go and have a look at your cursor colors, your background colors, your whatever you want to change here. You can change it inside of the theme data. Okay, so it's a way of globally changing some of your themes. Okay, so I'm going to remove this quickly and show you something else also. You can also use, instead of the normal theme data, you can also use theme data dot. And you can see there's a dark theme. So if I choose the dark theme and I save, everything is now dark. I can have the dark theme for my application. And let's say now you don't like the specific colors for the dark. So then you can go and change, for example, if you wanted to change it, you'll just put a dot at the end and you'll use the copy with function. Now, going into copy with, you can specify which one you want to change. So I want to change the primary color to colors dot. Let's say you wanted to use a blue-gray, which is very dark, instead of the black. And if I save now, you will see that you've got that blue-gray there. And instead of the scaffold background color being this dark black, you can also have a colors dot, let's say purple, or a purple accent, and you want to go with a very dark color there, and save. Let's just try purple again. Okay, so there you can see you can change your scaffold color, and that also makes the changes everywhere else. Okay, this doesn't look good at all, but you get the idea. So you can go with the dark theme and use copy with to make some changes to only the parts that you actually want to make changes to. Right, that's then it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed the video. See you in the next one.